Ladies and gentlemen, please do not panic, but scream! Scream for your lives! The Tingler is loose in this theater, and if you don't scream, it may kill you! Scream! Scream! Keep screaming! Scream for your lives! It's here! It's over here! Help! Help! Look out, it's under the seat! Ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening, Monster Island Resorters, and welcome to another episode of the Monster Island Resort, your online radio show that goes bump in the night. My name is Miguel Rodriguez, and as always, I'll be your host for this Halloween special. October has strangely been a scarce month for me because I've been busy planning the second annual Horrible Imaginings Film Festival in San Diego, and that has taken a lot of time away from the resort, sadly. But I'm going to make up for that for you today by giving you a very special guest. I am very pleased to announce that Terry Castle, the daughter of renowned genius William Castle, has decided to visit me on the resort today, and she's going to say hi to everybody. How are you doing, Terry?
Hi, I'm sorry it's me and not my dad.
Oh.
Next year, you can talk to him from the grave, I'm sure.
Next year. Well, I'd like to think that he's hanging around somewhere overhead.
You'd like to think, of course he is.
Of course he is. I mean...
things that go bump in the night, and that's not my father.
That's absolutely your father. I was wondering if an apparition could communicate all the way from... He's in France, am I wrong?
That's what I believe he is in France. And if you've read the book that he wrote, The Prayer, you kind of understand why he's there.
I've started the first chapter.
So you don't know yet?
I don't know yet. I'll get there.
Basically, I can give it to you in a nutshell.
Okay, let's hear about this. So this book is From the Grave, The Prayer.
And the reason I'm setting this up for you is because in my father's autobiography, which was called Step Right Up, I Want to Scare the Pants Off America, he actually wrote about driving around southern France in 1959 with my mother. Now, I was really young, so I don't remember any of this, and I wasn't there, but it's in his autobiography. And he came upon a house that looked haunted, and he said to my mom, "Look at that cool house. It looks haunted." And my mom said, "Yeah, it's totally creepy, and it's not cool at all." And my dad said, "Yeah, I know. I think I want to buy it." And my mom said, "What? Are you crazy?" My father said, "No, I want to make millions of keys and give them away at my next haunted house movie, and the winner could get one of the keys, the one that would be marked, would win a house in southern France that's haunted." And the very next day, my father bought the house. But sadly, he never got to use the gimmick because he never really made another haunted house film.
Right. Was that originally supposed to be for 13 Ghosts?
It might have been, but that I don't know. But it could have been. But the gimmick that my father came up with for 13 Ghosts, the Ghost Viewer and the Ghost Removers, and that idea he came up with when he was at the eye doctor.
When you see 13 ghosts, you'll be given a supernatural viewer like this, which will enable you to penetrate for the first time into the spirit world. It will let you see all 13 of our weird, wonderful, and wildly assorted ghosts.
Now, brace yourself as we take you across the threshold of our haunted mansion, where there's a ghost for everyone in the family. Father, mother, sister, brother. You'll be scared stiff, too, when you see what they see. 13 ghosts, materializing in ectoplasmic color through the magic of Illusiono, the Ghost Viewer.
I introduced 13 Ghosts at the local library on the 23rd?
Yeah, right.
Right, just a few days ago, and I talked about that because that is also in Step Right Up, which I just reviewed for KPBS's blog.
Yeah.
And I love all those anecdotes, like the one you just told.
Well, so you read it in the autobiography. I'm not lying there. It's there, right?
It is there.
He was actually in the, so that's the book takes place. He's in southern France, so it must be the house that he bought.
I think you're right. I can't disagree. I don't see any fault in that logic at all.
Thank you.
This is his latest gimmick, then, is his return.
Yes, I think that is his latest gimmick, is his return. And it makes sense because it's at a time where there's so many wonderful toys the technology has come to a place that I think my father really needs to step in and play with some of the stuff that's available today. And I don't think anything could keep him back.
Well, he's really great at Twitter and Facebook, I can say that.
It's kind of odd that my father tweets from the grave, don't you think?
I love it. I love it. I look forward to it every day. Occasionally I'll say something about a William Castle film, and he'll respond. And the first time that happened, I said, that's interesting.
Well, what does he say to you?
Oh, he'll say something like, I'm so touched that you'd mention my film. Or recently I said something like, William Castle is my hero. And he said, I'm somebody's hero, and you've made my day. Or he'll be very generous and very gracious.
Oh, he's so sweet. He was such a great dad. He's so sweet, and he's so supportive.
That's a couple of things I wanted to talk a little bit about. I was thinking of all the things I would wanted to talk to you about, and it's kind of a past, present, and future almost kind of thing, because you have the films of the past, and then you have done some work relatively recently, and then of course now you've brought back William Castle Productions.
Correct. So we have lots to talk about, and it's all horror, and it's all things that go bump in the night.
It's all good stuff.
And I really like Resort. I'm just waiting for my massage to come in while we talk.
Oh, he hasn't arrived yet.
Will he be a ghost masseur?
Yes, his name is Pedro.
Oh.
He'll be there with the, with the bath salts and everything later on, I guess.
Okay, good. As long as they're red.
Yes, as long as they're red.
I want to be in a bath of blood, like in the Tingler.
Right. The color part of that film.
Make that happen on my resort, Miguel, please.
I will. I'll do my best. I'll send it on the way with, and of course, drinks with little umbrellas are on the way as well.
Can I have a Bloody Mary, please?
Oh.
I just saw Paranormal Activity 3 last night. It was like, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. You have to say it 3 times in a mirror, and then turn out the lights, and then you get possessed by the demon.
Is that the urban legend behind the third one?
I don't know. I had trouble following the logic, but that's okay. I sat back and I enjoyed it. I'm not going to critique it. I just love horror films, so there you go.
I wondered about that. I wondered, as the daughter of William Castle, and William Castle has done lots of things, but of course he's known for the creepiness and the kind of the fright flicks of the 50s and 60s. Growing up with him as your father, were you exposed to his work as a young child?
Yeah, the most important thing to my dad, besides his films, because that was his life, was his family. And he was a fantastic dad. And it was my sister, myself, and my mom, and we were everything to him. And unfortunately, he died 34 years ago. But we were taken everywhere. I remember the phone ringing, and it'd be like Joan Crawford or Vincent Price or whoever it was. They'd invite my father to a party or to a screening or something, and my father would say, oh, yes, I'd love to come, but I need to bring my 3 girls. So, even when I was 5, I was taken to dinner with Joan Crawford at fancy restaurants or over to Vincent Price's house, he was a fantastic chef, and I remember him making us turtle soup, and that kind of freaked me out. And I was always on his sets. My mother always brought us to see Dad working, and I learned the ways around a set at a really young age. I don't know if you've had, or your listeners have had the pleasure of walking on a movie set, but the first thing you learn is that before you open the door to a sound stage, there's a red light and a green light. If it's red, you're never allowed to open that stage door, because if you do, you can ruin the shot. And if you do that, you get into really big trouble with your father. So I have a very healthy respect of the red light. The green light, then the shooting and not shooting, you can go in quietly, and you have to kind of be invisible so you don't distract anything, because time is money, and my dad made these films for like $12, so we were cautious.
And so I could imagine that you're able to see right there just how much goes into make-believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, make-believe starts with the story. It starts with a great story. And my father could spin a tale of terror. We used to have a house at the beach, and we'd have these big bonfires. And all the kids and all my friends would come with their marshmallows or their hot dogs and toast s'mores or toast their little hot dogs. And my father would sit there with his big cigar, and he'd start spin a tale of terror. And all the kids would stop chattering, and they would just fixate on him. And you could see their eyeballs just dilate in absolute terror as my father would tell a tale. Of course, he would make them laugh and then make them scream and then make them laugh and then make them scream, which is sort of his combination for the perfect horror film. It's the laughter and then the screams and then the laughter and then the screams, and then you laugh at yourself again.
I've always said whenever I talk either on the show or in conversation about Castle's gimmicks or films. Everybody talks about the gimmick part, and what fascinates me about that is the gimmicks have always been used to try to get people into theaters. There are gimmicks in advertising since film even was the inception of it. And so it's interesting that William Castle would be totally known for it. And so my thinking is that his gimmicks were most memorable, first of all, because of the ingenuity and cost that went into them. But for me, they always had sincerity behind them, as well as the ingenuity.
And Miguel, I also think that my father sold the gimmicks as he sold the films, meaning he went to every city across the country when the films didn't open wide like they open today. Today they open, in theaters across the country. Then one theater would have a film, and then it would open in another city and another city. And my father would travel with the film, and he would open it. And I think that he was one of the first director-producers, besides Alfred Hitchcock, that audiences recognized. And he branded himself as much as he branded those gimmicks.
For years, I have searched for a unique way whereby a motion picture audience can actually decide the climax of a picture. I have found such a way. My latest picture, Mr. Sardonicus, offers something no audience has ever had before: the power to determine the fate of a character on the screen, the power to punish. In ancient Rome, spectators could decree life or death to a gladiator by indicating thumbs up or thumbs down. During the French Revolution, the mobs could condemn a man by merely shouting, "To the guillotine." In the early West, vigilantes took the law into their own hands. Today, for the first time, the awful power to punish will be yours. After you see the evil events that made Mr. Sardonicus what he was, you will decide what should be done to him. You will now see some scenes from the face of Mr. Sardonicus will not be shown, because I realize that some people in this audience might be adversely affected by it.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually, to put his face along with it. And, of course, he had, just like Hitchcock did, a kind of logo of himself, didn't he?
Yes. And have you seen the new William Castle Productions logo?
I sure have. I love it.
I wish my waist was really that small, but you know what? If my father can come back from the grave, I can make my waist a little smaller.
That's absolutely true. You can do whatever you want.
Thank you, Miguel.
I follow the blog pretty regularly.
Pedro. Pedro's just walking in now.
Oh, excellent, excellent.
To the left, Pedro. Thank you.
I hope he has the heated pads ready and everything.
Excuse me, I need a sip of my Bloody Mary.
Okay.
Made with real blood, of course.
Keep tabs on this, everybody, that I provide all the accommodations at the resort.
Ah, the feet massage is just divine.
I hope that his ghostly hands aren't giving you too much of a chill.
I love ghostly hands.
Oh, good. Excellent, excellent. Getting back on topic, as long as you're relaxed and keeping up with
now you're going to throw me a hardball question.
No. It's no hardball questions, really. But
oh, come on, throw me one.
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay.
There was a feeling that he was having as much fun as the audience.
You think?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the best example of that is the introduction to the Tingler. Now, he always had, of course, there's the Mr. Sardonicus where he'd come in.
To me, that's the best one. I'm sorry, I have to cut you off.
Yeah.
He is so darn cute in that one.
Yes. That's the best way to put it, actually.
But it gives me, for me, it's his daughter. I look at that and I feel like, I want to cry because he's just, you just see, it's him. It's like, that's my dad. That's my dad. He is so adorable there with that twinkle in his eye and that tongue-in-cheek. Who's going to vote for you? Mercy or no mercy? Let me look around the audience. Let me count here. I just miss him so terribly much when I see that. But the Tingler was great. He comes out and you can. It's so funny because I don't know if you can see it, but I see it because I see him almost laughing. I see him.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like he can't help it. There's the hint of a smile coming out.
Yeah, but it's like I know that face. Because I lived with that face. It was the same face when my first date came to pick me up, and he said to him, "Whatever you do to my daughter, you're going to have to do to me." It was that same face he would use. And there it is on the screen, and my children who never got to meet him get to see that face.
I'm sorry. That's a great line.
I know. my poor date. I mean, I forgot this. He reminded me of this like 20 years later at a reunion, and he still remembers it. I think I was home by 8:30. I thought I was like a really bad date. I didn't realize it was my dad. It was terrifying.
That is really hilarious. That's a
I'm
great
glad
story.
you find it funny, Miguel.
Oh, well, sometimes other people's misery.
Yeah, exactly.
Schadenfreude, as they say. So.
Exactly. You're having too much fun.
I am. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm trying to
just
keep...
remind you, you're going to be up really tonight editing this, so just, you might not want to have so much fun.
I'm trying to keep from laughing. I picture that moment very clearly in my head.
God, I had lots of moments like that. I had this girlfriend, my friend. She's my very, very best friend. And for some reason, when we were like, I don't know, 10, she wore a scarf every day of her life, okay, around her head. And my father didn't understand why she wore a scarf. So she came to the door one day, and the doorbell rings, and my dad says, wait, and he runs to my mother's closet, and he pulls out scarves in the drawers, and he put a scarf on all of us, including our housekeeper and our chihuahua. And she opened the door, we're all wearing scarves, little chihuahuas dancing, walking around with a little scarf on.
Well, there you go. I mean, whether it's getting tickets or not, he wanted to perform.
Exactly.
Oh, that's hysterical. Did you get any pictures of the scarves?
I don't think I did.
Oh.
But you can call my friend Lori. She loves the resort. She can tell you all about it.
Okay, that would be hilarious.
My dad, though, I'd love to tell you what a great guy he was, too. I mean, when Rosemary's Baby, he produced Rosemary's Baby, he didn't direct it.
Right.
And that film was just a tremendous success, and it ran for a long time in Westwood. And, my father used to go to the movie theaters, and we would count how many people were in line. It'd be like, at that time, it'd be like $1.50, that's $3, that's $4.50, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, so we would count the people in line. But anyway, Rosemary's Baby, Dad was there often, and he couldn't believe the success. I mean, it was just mind-boggling. But after the movie, finished its play, my dad went around to every single person that worked in that theater, the person who sold the popcorn concession, the ticket guys, everybody, and he gave them all a tip. So it's just like, who would do that, right?
Right. That's one of those remarkable stories.
Yeah, because he knew they worked their butts off to make the theater-going experience a nice one, and he wanted them to be rewarded for that.
That's a really great thing. And there are lots of stories like that I like to read about and hear. Just to talk about Step Right Up again, that book is full of anecdotes. William Castle Productions just reissued it. How long had it been since it's been in publication?
God, I don't know exactly. I think it was in the mid-'90s when Putnam put it out again with the John Waters introduction. And I just quickly, just because it was out of print and now you can do this print on demand, so I thought, I'm just going to get that out there again. And I didn't even contact John Waters to reissue his introduction, which I might. But I just really wanted to have the book out there because it's really Dad's life told, like Dad would tell you if he was sitting around that campfire with you and he wanted to tell you his life story. I mean, it sounds like he's talking.
That's exactly what I said in my review. I said it's like he's sitting across there. Every anecdote is coming right out of his mouth, and you're right there just smiling and listening. And
in some ways, I feel like, it was so tragic that I lost my father when I was so young, when I was 19. But on the other hand, well, he's back from the grave, which is really groovy. But the other thing is that, I have his words like he spoke them, and then I have all these wonderful clips of him. And I feel so lucky that he is alive in celluloid and in print. And now he's back from the grave. So I'm just a lucky kind of gal.
Yeah, I'd say so. He's all over the place. And for a lot of people, he's an absolute legend.
Which he died thinking he was terribly unsuccessful, so I think he's probably a pretty heady ghost at this time.
Yeah, I hope so. Because if anything, his films, they have longevity.
Yeah, and that I don't think he would have ever believed. Because, like I said, he was relegated to making B films and being a B horror filmmaker. And I think in Hollywood, only in Hollywood, not in the world, but in Hollywood, I think he really wanted to be taken seriously, and I don't think he really was. But his fans took him seriously, and I don't think at that time he really realized that those 14 and 15-year-old boys who sat in those movie theaters did love the films and remember their experiences. And many of them went on to become fantastic filmmakers in their own right.
Yeah, absolutely. He's inspired a whole generation of filmmakers.
Yes, which I don't think he had any idea that he was doing.
Well, just not last week, but the week before, The House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler were a double feature on Turner Classic Films and introduced by David Edelstein, just as if they were Casablanca.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, that puts a smile on my father's face.
Yeah, and it put a smile on my face to watch them as well. In fact, I was cat sitting when I saw it.
Is that the one where you're the cat? I saw the YouTube.
Oh, did you see the YouTube video? That's the one.
My dad scared the cat.
Yeah.
You know what? He wasn't scared by the. You got it all wrong there, Miguel. He wasn't frightened because he was watching House on Haunted Hill. That cat knew my dad was in the room with you.
Oh, he felt William Castle's ghost.
Yeah. I mean, he's much more sensitive, obviously, than you.
Yes, he is, definitely. Sometimes I need to pay more attention.
Yes, we all do.
Well, that delights me that you saw that video. I think it's hilarious.
It really gave me a good giggle.
Let's move on a little more to the future. Although I did want to mention, one of the parts I do love in the book, and it tickled me because I knew I was going to be able to talk to you, there's an anecdote in which you were going to be in one of the pictures. Yes.
I was going to be a star. Thank you. I wanted to be an actress.
And what happened?
Do not like being in front of a camera. Well, I was supposed to be in a film called Straight Jacket, which starred Joan Crawford and Diane Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And Diane Baker plays Joan Crawford's daughter. And there's a scene where Joan Crawford, as a child, comes home and witnesses her mother hacking the head off her husband and her husband's lover. And my father said to Diane Baker, what did you look like as a kid? Can you bring in a picture? So she did, and it looked a lot like me. And I was 5 at the time, and, before that, I had said to my father that I wanted to be an actress. And so my father said, you know what? You can be in my movie. So every night for months, I practiced. I lay on this couch we had next to my father in my mother's bedroom, and he would say action, and I would get up slowly, and I would walk, towards the other room, and I would see my father who was holding a baseball bat, and he would be, he told me that he didn't tell me exactly what was going on. He said, now I want your eyes to go really big, and you want to imagine the most frightening thing you can imagine. And we did this over, and I was brilliant, Miguel. I was so good. I didn't know at the time that my mother had said to my father in confidence and in privacy, you might just want to have somebody there in case she chickens out. Because my mom was a really smart woman. So we get to the set, and when you walk out of Joan Crawford's set, especially in her later years, as she was aging, they were frigid. They were freezing cold because she wanted her skin taut. So the first thing I was greeted with was Arctic conditions, okay? And then the idea of being on screen and watching the scene terrified me. I couldn't do it. I chickened out.
You did chicken out. Right. Headed to the coward's corner.
I was coward's corner for me.
This is the fright break. Do you hear that sound? It's the sound of a heartbeat. A frightened, terrified heart. Is it beating faster than your heart or slower? This heart is going to beat for another 25 seconds. To allow anyone to leave this theater who is too frightened to see the end of the picture. Ten seconds more and we go into the house. It's now or never. 5, 4. You're a brave audience. 2, 1.
But my father did take me into the movie to see the other girl who played the part, and I do remember saying to my father, I could have done it better. Like a total brat.
Of course you had to say that.
And I couldn't have. I couldn't even get the nerve to get out, on the stage.
Well, I'm sure he rolled his eyes at that one. I wanted to get into a little bit of the psychology of this stuff, because one thing that I think is really fascinating, especially about not just William Castle's films, but the films of that era, people today who love really over-the-top, hardcore or gory or whatever horror films that are out love William Castle films. And I think that's really kind of amazing. What do you think makes the classic Castle oeuvre kind of so attractive to horror fans today?
Well, I believe that horror films reflect the times we live in. And I think that in 1968, our world changed. We had the Tet Offensive. We had Robert Kennedy's assassination. We had Martin Luther King's assassination, riots. It was a different place. Rosemary's Baby came out that year, and so did The Night of the Living Dead.
Much darker.
Much darker, and innocence was lost. And the horror films changed. And I think today, by horror fans, there is a love and a nostalgia and a desire to go back to a time of innocence. But their tastes are much more sophisticated. So it's in conflict.
Interesting. So it's like we want to view those films partly because it's like visiting a different time that's not today.
Yes.
But we probably could not recreate those films or even the tone of those films today.
Yes, and I do think there's one other element, and I have to say this, I'm not being critical of horror films today in any way, but I do think that my father's horror films had actually really good stories. I mean, I think it begins with a written word, and it wasn't all about who was getting sliced up and diced up and gore and blood. I mean, I actually think some of the stories were really, really clever, and I think that's also led people to a love of the William Castle sort of mystique. I think it's the innocence, it's a good story, it's the hullabaloo, the gimmick, it's the tongue-in-cheek persona, it's all of it. But I think it begins with a written word.
Yeah, I think that's true. That kind of leads me into, we've talked a lot about your father. I actually want to talk a little about you now. One of the things that you've done is you've produced two remakes. You did The House on Haunted Hill in 1999, and with Jeffrey Rush, I believe?
Yes.
And then 13 Ghosts, I think a couple years later, 2001 or so.
Yes.
I think 13 Ghosts is one of the most underrated of the 2000s horror movies. And
it was really scary. It really was.
It was really scary. And one thing I love the DVD, one of the extras that talks about all the history of all the ghosts.
Right.
That really sold me.
There's a lot that went into it, and Stephen Beck, I think, did a really great job directing it. House on Haunted Hill was a little more challenging, and I just co-produced it with Joel Silver and Bob Zemeckis. It was a little bit more challenging, and I think that the end for me didn't quite work. But 13 Ghosts, I actually thought was a pretty solid horror film. I agree with you. But again, it was taking sort of old material that is classic and wonderful and trying to put it in a modern world. And that's a really tough thing to do. In fact, when they try and remake the Tingler, and I think there's a deal on that right now over at Columbia, which I have nothing to do with. It's almost like you don't want to see the Tingler remade because it's kind of perfect the way it is.
Totally agree. I don't know. I hope, one thing that makes a remake good is if there are new solid ideas behind it or a new take on it that is really interesting. While, the spirit of the original is there, but for example, The Thing or Cronenberg's The Fly were examples of remakes where they're absolutely different from the original. But
so fantastic that had you never seen the original, it wouldn't make a difference. You still loved it in its own right.
Right, exactly. And The Thing was able to completely alter the theme of it, whereas the first one, like you said before, it was a product of its time. It was a fear of communism. It was everybody banding together against a foreign enemy.
Right.
Whereas in the 80s, it was a little bit different, and it was all about paranoia of each other, and it was
Isn't
completely
it interesting
different.
how in different generations it reflects different things?
Yes, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I find the genre so interesting.
Yeah, same with me. It really is. It's a fantastic genre. And my dad used to say he made horror films so it gives the 16-year-old boy a reason to put his arm around his date.
Yeah.
As long as the date wasn't me.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Or else they'd have to put their arms around your dad as well.
Exactly.
That one tickles me. That's a good story. I want to talk a little bit more about 13 Ghosts again. You co-produced.
Which one, the original?
The one you produced.
Yeah, that was really fun to make. I mean, it was really cool. The house was super cool. We built an entire house up in Vancouver. It was like the strangest thing. We built like this $1 million. My father would have a heart attack. He built this $1 million house. I mean, he made House on Haunted Hill in 13 days for under $200,000. So, yeah, we built a house out of glass, and it was beautiful. I mean, it didn't have any plumbing, but other than that, it was perfect.
Is it still standing?
No, and then they just had, it was on a sound stage, then they just
dismantled.
tore it apart. But I think that the interesting thing for me was making those ghosts scary and compelling. And each having an interesting enough backstory. Again, it goes back to having it, much as you can have it all written before you actually go into production. And so many times I think films, they have a basic script and they're rewriting as you're going, you're getting script pages. The end is changing and you fix things later after it's already been made with ADR lines. And I just think it just sort of ruins the film. The House on Haunted Hill.
No skeleton yet.
Huh?
There's no skeleton yet.
You could sort of say, yeah, there's no, I'm thinking Emergo. Well, I'm thinking, what?
Yeah, I was kind of hinting at the Emergo. I just love talking about horror and its influence over people. It's such a stigmatized genre.
Right.
That sometimes, especially, like you said, your father didn't think he was as successful as he was, yet he has longevity. And I think there is something to be said for that.
It's really interesting because I just released my dad's working script from House on Haunted Hill.
Right.
Called House on Haunted Hill, a William Castle annotated screenplay. And I just read, somebody wrote a review on it on Amazon.com. And it was a really interesting review because the reviewer, and I don't know who it is, said that sometimes he thinks that my father's films are overlooked because the gimmicks are talked about so much. But to see my father's copious notes in the margins of a fabulous script written by Rob White is really fantastic to see my father's creative mind at work. You really see the decisions he made. You kind of understand why he made those decisions, and it's an artifact that is just remarkable. So I think that, again, like I said before, it starts with a great script and then a great director and a producer who can take that script and make the right decisions with it to make a film in the manner in which it should be made.
I'm actually holding the annotated screenplay right now.
Are you playing with a Mergo and scaring yourself silly?
Yes, I'm terrified. I'm all alone in this giant recording studio, and
have you done the flip, though? There's a little flip book in there?
Yeah, I love it. I really like it. It's a really high-quality kind of trade paperback with the full screenplay in it, handwritten notes in the margins, as you said. And I have to mention the cover design on the back.
And the front by Charlie Largent, who's fantastic.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
He wrote an introduction to it, and he also did the book. And my father, every script he worked off of, he stuck in his leather cover. So we mimicked his leather cover.
Right, kind of the brownish leather cover.
Yes, so he actually, I have his leather cover of his first scripts, but every single film he made was lovingly put in that leather cover. The hard thing for me was that the book could have been a different book. I want it to be affordable, and I want horror fans to be able to buy it. And as soon as you start making it really, really slick, and I think the book is slick enough, but as soon as you start going with a really fancy publisher and you add tons of color photographs, et cetera, you're looking at a $50, $60 price point.
Yep.
And I struggled with that because my dad's fans, not all of them can afford a $40 book, and I want them to be able to enjoy his note in the working script. I think it's a delight.
It is a delight. I was really happy to get it in the mail. I did my nerd dance around the living room. It's funny. I don't know if you read my review of Step Right Up, but I started it by not even talking about the book at all. I couldn't help but tell an anecdote about when I was first introduced. William Castle is actually the first director whose name I knew.
You're young, but I think that's part of his appeal. In the 50s and 60s, he was the first person people knew as a director. I mean, William Castle was a director, right?
Right.
Like, you didn't know who directed other films. It didn't matter. But William Castle, you knew because he put himself out. He branded himself.
Right. And it's because of William Castle that I began to think about, I wonder who directed Fright Night, or I wonder who directed The Fly, or some of the other films I saw at the time. I wonder who directed Nightmare on Elm Street. Because, this is a person who made this film, or led the march, so to speak.
Right.
And for me, it was William Castle, and I guess it was for a lot of other people, too.
How did you come to know him?
It was in my elementary school library. I'm going to say I was around 8 years old. I had known Vincent Price because of The Raven, Roger Corman's The Raven, which I loved a lot as a kid. And I was flipping through one of those children's encyclopedias, hardcover, oversized books, and it was all about horror films. It was all about class. It was mostly Universal and things like that. And there was a section on William Castle, and it had a picture of Vincent Price from The Tingler, and I said, there's the guy from The Raven.
I'm William Castle, and I feel obligated to warn you about the next attraction you will see at this theater. The picture is The Tingler, which I directed. And for the first time in motion picture history, members of the audience, including you, will actually play a part in the picture. You will feel some of the physical reactions, the shocking sensations experienced by the actors on the screen. I guarantee that The Tingler has more shocks per minute than my last film, The House on Haunted Hill. But don't be alarmed. You can protect yourself. When you see the picture, you will be told, and remember the instruction, how you can guard yourself from attack by The Tingler. And now may I show you a few scenes from The Tingler?
And it was talking about, of course, the gimmicks, and it was talked about what happened to audiences who went to see The Tingler. And I remember reading that and thinking that was so cool, and about how William Castle, he was known for all these fun things. And for me, as a kid, I remember saying, I wonder if I can go see that now. I wonder if I could experience that now.
Oh,
of course.
Wonderful.
And that's the story of that. And ever since then, I've been hooked.
I think also that's the other thing that's interesting is that I think the audiences my father really, really loved and really enjoyed scaring were kids, 8-year-old kids, 14-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids, 50-year-old kids, but kids.
Definitely.
And, I just wrote a book that's sort of somewhat autobiographical called Fearmaker, Family Matters. And it's really for the reluctant reader. It is a horror story, but it's my horror story. And it's about a kid named 12-year-old kid named Adam Castle, who's really me, except for I'm not 12 and I'm not a boy. But other than that, he's really me. Because he grows up in a big house in Beverly Hills, and he overhears his father planning a really disturbing murder.
Can you say what the title is again? I'm sorry, Fearmaker?
Fearmaker, Family Matters.
Fearmaker, Family Matters.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to look for... I hadn't heard about that one. I'm going to look for that one.
Yes, the kids are absolutely loving it, and I'm really excited about it because it's sort of the sweet spot for a good appreciation of horror.
Would you say it's kind of like a young adult novel?
No.
No?
No, it's a little bit younger than a young adult novel. I think it's more, the sweet spot would be from 10 to 12-year-olds.
Great.
Or the 12-year-old in all of us. It is a story about a 12-year-old boy who does hear his father planning this murdering, kidnapping of who he finds out is his classmate and somebody he has a massive crush on. And it's up to him and his best friend, Julian, to foil his father's diabolical plan.
That sounds a lot of fun.
Yeah, so he goes all through Hollywood, chasing down, trying to find and save and rescue Jennifer Isles.
I feel like a lot of the best stories in literature right now, especially in popular literature, are coming from either the juvenile or young adult subgenres.
Well, that's what I read.
Right, exactly. Point in case.
Could Coraline be any better?
Exactly.
Could Graveyard Series be any better? Could Neil Gaiman's be any better?
No, I adore Coraline. And
my great friend Henry Selick directed it and wrote the screenplay for it.
Well, it's a work of art.
It's a complete work of art. I just adore him, and I worked with him for a couple of years with Henry, and he's great. And his wife has been so supportive. It's been great, and she's actually read Fearmaker, and she just was so excited by it, and she read Dad's book, which, my dad has a novel from the grave, The Prayer, like we mentioned earlier, and the Selicks have been totally supportive, and it's been wonderful.
Well, I'm going to have links and photos of those books From the Grave, Fearmaker, and also the Annotated Screenplay.
Yeah, the Annotated Screenplay really is something that, it's just so cool to see my dad's handwritten notes. I left it completely
untouched. Yeah, I noticed that. It literally is like you just took it and put it in the book.
I scanned the pages and, made sure that everything was in there because I thought it was really important for historical purposes to get a look at a film in the process of being made from 1959, and one that was shot in 13 days. I think that's really important.
It's become so iconic, and that ridiculous cat video I put on YouTube, one of the reasons I had to share it with everybody, it's not just, of course, the silly cat, which the internet is notorious for, but it's that scene of the skeleton coming out of the acid bath that I think it's been used in a lot of different movies as, what's showing on in the background. And it's become such an iconic scene just in film in general.
Right. And there is still that one good scare when Mrs. Slides, the housekeeper, comes out.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's still pretty creepy, actually.
It really is. It still gets a little scream. The relationship between Frederick Loren, Vincent Price, and Annabelle Loren, his wife, is just such a phenomenal relationship. Could it be more sinister? He takes her hair and gently is brushing it, and all of a sudden he pulls the back of her hair,
Yeah, he's vicious in that movie.
But could anybody else but Jeffrey Rush pull that off?
No.
He was so perfect. He was such the villain, but he also was kind of a good guy,
Was Jeffrey Rush, speaking of that, was he was channeling more like John Waters than Vincent Price?
Well, it's interesting because he came out, Jeffrey Rush to me is just the consummate actor. He puts on his clothing, he becomes the character. But when he walked out and I first saw him with this, his idea to put this thin little mustache on, and I don't think it had anything to do with John Waters. I really don't. But to me it was like, oh my God, you're channeling John Waters. But I don't think that was in his psyche at all. I think that's just what he thought the character
That's who the person was, yeah.
Yes, and I just think that's sort of like, they talk about synchronicity, and I think there was some synchronicity there.
That makes sense. I can see Jeffrey Rush just falling into that character.
Yes, and I don't think many people could play that. He was really great.
When you're putting on the shoes of someone who was played by Vincent Price,
right,
that you've got big shoes to fill, especially for the audience who is going to see House on Haunted Hill. Vincent Price is the actor of actors.
Exactly. Hey, and in the Tingler, he takes an acid trip. Come on.
Oh, I know, of course, the lysergic acid.
Isn't that funny?
It is really funny, and that scene, every time it gets people. And I think
the one film of my dad's that scares me the most to this day, I mean, I think it's truly a scary film, is Homicidal.
Yep, Homicidal, definitely. I love that film.
Rosemary's Baby, I mean, because Rosemary's Baby I just find is just so creepy and dark, but nothing but bad stuff came as a result of it, so I have a hard time with the devil.
A lot of that is in Step Right Up.
I know, but a lot of it isn't, and I suffered through it as a child.
Oh, I can imagine so.
The interesting thing is that this is really interesting. Nothing but bad stuff happened after Rosemary's Baby. The fabulous composer, Christopher Comita, he was killed in this freak accident. Roman Polanski's beautiful wife, Sharon Tate, was butchered in her unborn son, obviously by the Manson family. My dad's kidneys failed. He went under the knife. And in his autobiography, he also mentions that, I remember him telling me that he imagined the devil's eyes in the surgeon's knife, when he was going under. So, I mean, and then Dad thought, I think, that he unleashed evil onto the world. And he's never really recovered from his illness, and he never sort of was able to gain footing after that film, which should have catapulted him into a different stratosphere, but it was a really, really dark time. Mia Farrow gave my father a humidor that had a 14-karat gold devil on it with ruby eyes. It said, "To Bill, love Mia." And my father died, and of course, my mother actually has severe Alzheimer's, and so I have all my father's stuff, and this was in a storage unit in Hollywood, California. And my husband and I were cleaning out the storage unit, and we're like, my husband's like, "Oh, this is really cool." I'm like, "Don't even touch it." Like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "This is bad luck. We just have to leave it in the storage unit." He goes, "Well, we could sell it." I'm like, "No, we can't do anything with this thing. It just has to stay here. Don't want to give it to anybody. I don't want to throw it away. It's bad luck." So we just left it there. But what's really weird is when Dad wrote this book, The Prayer, a kid named Alec Lambert, living in Hollywood, California, whose parents were killed in a car crash, is being raised by his older sister. Now, my father was orphaned when he was 11 and raised by his older sister. But Alec and his sister inherited a storage unit. And Alec walks into this storage unit that's emptied, and he finds the humidor. And inside the humidor is a skeleton key that has the word haunted house on it. And he's the one that finds the key to the haunted house that my father's haunting in southern France.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, it's The Prayer. It's my father's story.
And that's the one I have sitting on the coffee table at home waiting for me to finish.
Well, you've had a film festival to organize.
Yeah, that has been an interesting. It's actually going really well, but it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Hearing your story about the darkness that came after Rosemary's Baby, how much of that would you attribute to the number of vehement letters that came pouring in after that film came?
Oh, a tremendous amount. I mean, the church banned it. I mean, wrote my father awful letters. And my father was a really sensitive man. And my father grew up Jewish, and so did I, but he did not believe in organized religion. But he was an incredibly spiritual man. And for him to get hate mail like that touched him profoundly. He had a cousin that stopped talking to him. I mean, it was not talked about in those days. And this book that he got in galley stages, Rosemary's Baby, was just an unbelievably fantastic read. And he finished the book and said to my mom, "Will you read this?" And she said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you have to read it tonight." So my mother spent the entire night up and read the book. And I remember the next day they mortgaged our house so my father could buy the rights to R11's Rosemary's Baby. But I do think that the whole experience played on my dad's psyche.
It just makes me think about artists or filmmakers or storytellers. They can tell dark stories that tap into some really disturbing things, like Rosemary's Baby definitely does. And that can serve a purpose of catharsis or whatever for audience members. And I just can't help but note at the sad irony of the people who write those letters in response to something they think is dark or evil, and they themselves are causing something far darker than that film ever did.
Exactly. And I find that terribly sad. And they're good-hearted people who probably had just strong beliefs at the time, and it was a turbulent time in our society. But, I mean, all I can say is that it affected my father profoundly. So I guess their letters had the effect that was intended.
I suppose so. Yeah, it's very sad.
Well, definitely. I mean, my kids, they'd always like to go to the store and they'd have these cute, like a devil costume for Halloween or those cute little bath toys that are little devils. I'm like, no!
No devil, nothing. Yeah. Well, I guess there isn't really much silver lining for that in your experiences. But
there's no silver lining.
Yeah.
None.
None.
And the only silver lining is that it's a brilliant film. I mean, it's a brilliant film to this day.
And it's remembered by audiences and by film critics and by everyone pretty much as being a brilliant film.
But you know what's so interesting? This is what I find fascinating. So my dad did all these films, right? And William Castle's The Tingler and House. It's Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
I went recently to the Castro in San Francisco, and they were showing Rosemary's Baby, and they had no idea who William Castle is. It's just like, it's no idea that William Castle made this film. In fact, somebody mentioned that William Castle had a role in it because he's in the phone booth scene. Like,
right.
Didn't have any idea that he produced the film.
Yeah, or that it was him who shopped the script around and got it made at all.
Yeah, it's so funny to me, because so why is he not, it's Roman Polanski did that film, but not my father. It's interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. That's just the way, though. But I think, I think people who really love film and love the genre and do know.
Yes, no, I'm sure they do. But again, it was a dark time. It was a dark time for a lot of people.
Well, I think one of the last things that I wanted to mention, though, would be a little more lighthearted from Step Right Up that I really loved was actually going back to Straight Jacket and how they tried to stay away from the gimmick and instead do the Joan Crawford tour.
Right? I have fabulous photographs.
Oh, can you send me some?
I probably could send you some. I could send you some.
That would be awesome.
I mean, like, do you want them for this podcast?
Not necessarily, although that would be great. But
I don't know how quickly I can get them to you, but I have some fantastic photographs from that tour.
Okay, I could always share them later on. It doesn't have to be for this one.
They're gorgeous.
Oh yeah, that would be great. That whole anecdote about that tour and going all over Europe is a delight to read. But I think my favorite part of the whole thing is the last line in that anecdote where he talks about making the cardboard axes. Right. And he says, I just can't keep away from a good gimmick.
I know, he couldn't help himself. Try a seatbelt, anything. He couldn't help himself.
And that goes back to what I said earlier about it wasn't just marketing, it was also sincerity. I think there was a lot of, he just really loved doing it.
I think he was an amazing press man, or a fantastic marketer too. I mean, he did enjoy it. I think he enjoyed the whole idea of the theater going experience.
Right.
And honestly, today, I mean, it's kind of what's needed. I mean, to get butts into movie theaters.
I agree, and I think it's less of an experience now. People are staying home more and not really going to the theater. As someone who does a film festival, it's really, really difficult to get people to come out.
Right. So you have to come up with a good gimmick.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. I have an art gallery as part of my film festival.
Oh, that's cool.
It is very cool. It actually opened up Thursday, and we've had a couple of hundred people show up for it already. I'm very excited.
What do you have in your art gallery?
It all is supposed to express horror or dark or macabre feelings. Mm-hmm. And so what's really interesting about it, and one of the reasons I love the genre, is people think of horror as such a one-dimensional thing, but it really invades every aspect of the human condition. And I'm trying to get that across in my film festival and in the art gallery. And the art gallery really does it because there are 15 different artists who are on display there, and everything is so different, yet fits together because thematically it's all expressing something dark or the darker part of the human condition, but you can express that in such a myriad different ways. It could be funny, or it could be disturbing, or it could be wild, or you know what I mean?
But it's so interesting because the fans, the hardcore horror fans, it does express a part of the psyche, but it doesn't mean that they're horrific in any way. Most of them are tender-hearted, loving, caring, sensitive people who happen to love this genre.
I couldn't agree more. And I think the nicest and most generous or giving people I've ever met are people who love really, really ridiculously scary movies.
And why is that? And there's something my father tapped into there. I mean, there is something. My father was a misunderstood kid. There's something about that. There's something about, and he related to other people who sort of felt a lot like him. The monster kids, that's the term in a sense. Who are those people today? Are they the gamers? You kind of wonder.
It's hard to find who they are, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I think as far as why is that, it's something I put a lot of thought into. It's the whole reason I started this podcast, as a matter of fact, was to examine the psychology behind it and the why is that behind it. And I think it comes down to catharsis. And it comes down to being honest with oneself. I think people who come to terms with the fact that they love dark things, whether it's movies or art or literature or what have you, there's some kind of pretension that has to be put away, because that's not something that is, as a cultural moray, it's not really an acceptable thing.
Well, I always saw it as somehow maybe feeling a bit disenfranchised as a person in society.
Yeah, I think, that there is definitely a factor of that as well.
Because I find that to be incredibly interesting. I mean, I think the combination of horror reflecting the times we live in and the souls that fill the seat for a good old-fashioned horror film, it's really fun. Like I said last night, I went to see Paranormal Activity 3, and there were two sort of jockey guys that had crew team, and they were really big and built. And talking to them, and they were like so excited to go see this film, and they were so scared. They were complete wusses, but they couldn't wait to get in and participate in it.
Definitely. The beginning, I think, of the book of Step Right Up, William Castle talks about seeing people lined up to go into a horror movie very excited and thinking to himself, why are these people paying money to get scared?
Right.
Yeah. And it's something that is very enjoyable to think about.
Yes, it absolutely is. And I will continue to think about that as I lie on my resort.
Yes. And definitely on that note, I think we are way past what I usually do, the length of these episodes for.
So you'll be up really late tonight.
Yeah, I'll be up really late tonight, but I have had an extraordinarily enjoyable time, and I hope that Pedro has treated you very well.
Thank you, and thank you, Pedro. It's been great fun. You're charming, and I can see why my dad likes to flirt with you on Twitter.
Well, hopefully he'll keep it up. I'll try to be nice to the ghost.
Okay, and let me know how he's doing.
I will definitely do that, Terry, and very much happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you, too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Tingler has been paralyzed by your screaming. There is no more danger. We will now resume the showing of the movie.
You don't hear my breathing. I can hear you breathing.
You don't want to hear Miguel's heavy breathing.
As he's lasting over my father, the ghost.
Oh, gosh. I'm glad we're not recording that part.
It is recorded.
Oh, no.